Good morning, everyone. It's kind of like one of those days or one of those weekends where lots of stuff has sort of happened in the milk world regarding a thing called Bovaer. I think that's how you pronounce it. If any of you watched a lot of social media and stuff, you might have seen that there's been a trial of a methane suppressant on some Arla farms. And there's been a bit of a kickback from this from consumers regarding saying boycott Arla products because they don't like the thought of cattle having this. And I just thought I'd come on here and talk about a little bit about it, just from a farming perspective and kind of what's happening and everything like that. Really, I'm not an Arla producer. I'm just in the dairy industry. But first of all, I'd like to say that if there's a boycott, a lot of people, there seems to be a massive overreaction on this, with a lot of people not really getting it. So for starters, there's only 30 farms in the UK trialling this. It's not hundreds. I don't know how many farmers supply Arla in the UK, but there are 7,000 something dairy farms in the UK. So they puts it in perspective of how much milk is actually being affected using this Bovaer. Now, it's a feed supplement. You basically mix some of it in with the feed, and it's claimed that it will reduce methane emissions from cows by about 27 to 30%. And methane is potentially a greenhouse gas that will, cause global warming. So we say. Okay. My own thoughts on this is that first of all, boycotting the products is going to probably damage some of the UK farming industry at a time it doesn't need it. If you suddenly start boycotting Arla farmers, just because 30 farms are involved with it. The actual chemical compound of it is interesting. If you look at it, it sounds a bit scary because it's all chemical names, but actually isn't that any different from when you start looking at chemical names or a lot of things like salt and stuff? I think it's got some sort of things saying may cause irritant and stuff like that. Well, you could probably put those claims on salt and things like that. So maybe that's a bit of a panic thing. It's also been trialled quite considerably before in Europe, so it's not a new product that someone's just brought out. So my thoughts on this are, don't overreact to this. The whole point of the trials are literally trials, and I'm sure they haven't scaled up to 30 farms from nothing. They've started with a small number of cows, and then they're going on to see how it. So if there was any health implications for either the farmer or the milk or the animal, I don't think they would have gone on. A bit like drug trials, really. You start with something small, and then you go to bigger numbers before you prove it works. And you've got to test these things because that's the way it is. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing goes into the milk, and I'm not worried about it myself. I've not been asked to be involved with it. Coming on from this, I thought I'd just say where we're going and a bit of the craziness that is happening in this world. You see, at the end of the day, whatever this stuff's safe or not, it's not a natural thing that's going into cows. We can't deny that. And we're kind of getting into this world now where we're trying to combat climate change, but we're doing stuff that just maybe isn't the best thing, really. I look at not just this, something that you're giving animals that don't normally eat, but also the way we're going with solar panels all over the land and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, we're saving the planet, but we're industrializing it at the same time. I kind of feel uneasy about stuff like that. From my own point of view, we have to now do a carbon audit on our farm. We're not a big flipping carbon footprint place. Look at us. Look, I mean, what's the carbon footprint of that tractor, my yard scraper? It's been on the farm for 30, 40 years. More than that, actually. 40 something. Well, 41 years it's been here. The carbon footprint on that is minimal, isn't it? It's bought and paid for. We have to do a carbon audit, and this is quite funny. I don't believe that the average consumer really is that bothered about the carbon footprint of the stuff they buy in the supermarket. You shout me down if you think I'm wrong, right? But how many of you, when you go shopping for your weekly shop, go into Tesco's or Aldi or wherever you go and go, right, we need to make sure that our potatoes have got the lowest carbon footprint in the lot. Let's have that cheese. What's the carbon footprint on that? What's the carbon footprint on the milk? People don't shop like that. They shop on price and what they like. And if the supermarkets are really, really concerned about the carbon footprint on food, they would say, right, okay, we'll only sell British cheese. Maybe we'll only sell French wine because that's not come very far. We won't bother with Australian wine. That's going to come from the other side of the world. Doesn't make sense, does it? I tell you what, bottled water, we won't sell that. Because when I was a kid, there was no bottled water. No one drank bottled water in the UK. This is the ridiculous world we've got into now. Everyone carries a flipping water bottle with them. A plastic bottle of water. Christ almighty, I grew up for 20 odd years. I didn't carry a bottle of water with me. I don't even carry one on the farm. Suddenly we need bottled water. What's the carbon footprint of everyone thinking they need a bottle of water with them? And at the very least, when you go into Tesco, there is bottled water in there that isn't from the UK. I remember going in there once and there was some, I think there was a bottle of water, glacier water from Iceland. Right, okay. So on part of my carbon audit, right, there was a ways to improve. Now, let me tell you one of these things that I just found ridiculous. And there was three things. I can't remember what the other two were. One of the ways to improve our carbon footprint was to calve our heifers down younger, right? So we rear our own heifers, and we generally calve them about 30 months old, because we like to sort of make them sure they're mature enough. And the other reason for this is that we're going to keep our heifers, our cows, a very long time. We're not an intense farm. We're British Friesian, slow, easygoing cows. We'll still have that cow when it's 12 years old, pretty sure. Or if we don't, it's going to be around that age. So we're not in a rush to get them in calf and you know, get them to the other end, if you like. The bigger, more intense dairy herds, and maybe using Holstein, want to get their cows in calf younger because they don't want to hold on to these heifers very long. They want to get them in calf, and also they're not going to be around for so long. Holstein's generally a bit more of a racehorse of a cow, wears out quicker, doesn't last as long. They've got health issues, foot things. They won't be around on the farm when they're 12 years old. So my argument is, why do I need to rush to get my heifers in calf? Because I'm not looking at a long-term, I'm not talking a short-term on the farm, I'm looking long-term. But that apparently is bad for my carbon footprint. So in theory, I should try and get them in calf earlier, which to me is a bit like trying to get, you know, maybe if you've got a 16-year-old daughter, she's pregnant at 16 rather than 20 or something. Which do you think would be better? So, carbon footprint, we're chasing this world of carbon footprint all the time. I'm not entirely convinced that sometimes we've got this a little bit wrong, especially when you're pointing the blame of the carbon footprint on this planet really being caused by cows and stuff like that, which have been around for centuries and forever, whereas the things in the sky flying over, I don't hear anyone saying we should stop flying or reduce the flights we do. I don't hear anyone saying we should only have one TV in the lounge anymore rather than the ones all in the bedrooms and stuff. Because if we're going to talk about carbon footprints, we've got to admit that our carbon footprint in this 21st century, now where we're at, is significantly higher than our parents'. My parents' carbon footprint was minuscule compared with what mine is, or what the average person's is, because they didn't flipping have French cheese, and they didn't have tellies in the bedroom, and they didn't have a 24 or a 48-inch telly. They had a 21-inch, I think. They didn't go on holidays abroad. They had one car. They just didn't consume like we do now. So the kind of world we're at is really kind of like, we're trying to cut back on some things, but we're not trying to reduce the actual carbon footprint of the people, which is laughable. But coming on from the carbon footprint, and this is the one thing that is not being addressed now, and I've come a long way from talking about milk, but I'm talking about the real issue on this planet is population growth. Because the world's population is growing all the time. We can have our carbon footprint, but if you double the world's population, you've not achieved anything, have you? And that is the one issue that no one talks about, and no one will kind of like tackle. And it's not going to ever get tackled as far as I can see, because who's going to turn around and say to a country, you've got to sort out your population growth? That won't go down well, will it? China got away with it in the 70s and 80s, but then they're a dictatorship, so I think, you know, the people just were subjected to their rule. Whereas, can you imagine telling everyone in the UK only have 2 kids or less, or France or America or something. I don't think that's going to go down well. But that's the real way of saving the planet and cutting down your carbon footprint, more so than feeding Bovaer or me stopping my calves, my heifers calving down when they're 2.5 years old and stuff. So anyway, my advice on this really is to don't panic over this Bovaer. Boycotting it, I think, is silly. If you're really concerned about it, contact Arla, get the full facts before you kind of like suddenly jump onto something on TikTok that someone who's never been on a farm is suddenly an expert. But maybe if there is boycotting, it does send a signal out that people are more concerned about the purity of milk than they are about what goes, and are concerned about what goes into it, which is probably a good thing. My one thing I would be concerned about is that whether cows graze outside or not, and I'm a big fan of cattle grazing in fields. I know a lot of farmers now keep them in, or a large number keep them in all year round, and they are very, very well looked after. But I think cows belong in the field. But that's just my opinion, not other farmers maybe. But anyway, Arla and Bovaer. This isn't going to stop, by the way. This isn't going to be the end of feed supplements and stuff, because the pressure on farming now is that carbon footprint. But I don't really genuinely believe it's the pressure coming from consumers. I think if you did a straw poll in Tesco's and you said, right, this pint of milk is £1, this pint of milk is 50p, the pound one's going to save the planet with carbon footprint, or you can have 50p, I think most people go the 50p one. And I really honestly believe that people aren't shopping from a carbon point of view. I think there's a bit of lip service here it's all driven by government. The supermarkets are kind of more connected with politics than you think, but I don't believe the general public are shopping for carbon. I really don't. And that might sound bad coming from me, but I really don't believe they're shopping for carbon. I believe they're shopping for what they want. Right, anyway, Sunday morning, I've been out here since 5:30. I'm going to go and have some bacon. I don't know whether that's got a carbon footprint on it or not, but I'm going to have it. I'm shopping for bacon, not carbon.